Alrighty, so what we got going on is our cleaned up meat, all rinsed off, all looking pretty good, and we'll trim off, things as we go. So our different pieces, just like I was saying, will be your ham or your back leg, your loin or your back strap, whatever you want to refer to it as, and then your front shoulder. And so just to show you one of each, we'll do a real quick kind of tutorial on cutting. These guys are still a little frozen. They're not completely thawed, but we'll go with the ham. The other things I find to be my essential needs: extra sheet pan, stock pot, a bowl for all of my other scraps so that we can just huck pieces in there, know where it's at, then we can make sausage later. So the bone on the back ham, you're gonna see the ball joint and the bottom where the shank was. And so the bone is gonna make kind of an L like this. And so you'll follow the inner bone down to the shank bone, and it's pretty easy overall to clean up. Oh yeah, still a little frozen in there, but not bad. And it's not gonna make that much of a deal, but the reason they call it boning or to bone is so that you're legitimately following the bone as you go. And so I made the cut to come all the way down and come around this bone right here, where you're gonna find a knuckle right in the middle. And once you have that knuckle, you're pretty much golden. And so come back in, really just feel the bone, feel the meat, feel where everything is. And it doesn't take a lot of time to do this. You should be able to do it pretty quickly. And any of your scrap pieces, you can kind of make the executive decision whether you're going to add it into your sausage pile or if you're just going to get rid of it in general. And so now you can see the bone itself. So this is the joint where the shank would connect. This is kind of your femur-esque bone or your femur, and this is where your kneecap is. So you're going to come right around that kneecap. It's going to come up just a little bit, and you're going to trim it right out. Then you're just going to come on the back side of everything right here and just cut it all right out. And when you get to this part, you can kind of cut in. This is where your kneecap is. See that? Woo! And then just use the weight of the piece of meat itself, and it kind of falls right off for you. Pretty simple, pretty easy overall. Now, if you really wanted to, you could take all this excess off, you could throw it into your scrap pile, or you can put it right into your stock pot and you'll make a really nice flavorful stock. Once you have that done, your ham, you have a straight up boneless ham. So you might trim it up a little bit, you might tie it up and truss it, but overall, that's your basic boning technique for your back hams. Next up is your back strap, and I keep it pretty simple on the back strap. I like to leave a lot of this fat. You're gonna have a piece of sinew underneath here, a really tough kind of, not necessarily the best piece to eat, but with all that fat on top of it, I feel like it really adds flavor. So I'm gonna leave all of that there. I'm gonna look at the back side of it, see how much of that sinew is left on the back side, and I'm gonna trim it up so it's nice and even. So I'll square off one end, right into the scrap, square off my other end, come around, kind of have it going away from me a little bit, and I'm gonna take a look at those shinier pieces and I'm gonna trim them right off. So that at least when I go to eat it, I can not have sinew as part of it. And I'll put all of that right into my sausage pile. So as you're shaving and going, you just kind of, you make judgment calls and you kind of just look at it as you go. And you want it to be trimmed up so it's nice and neat and even, looks professional, looks delicious. And this would be your trimmed loin. So there's a couple of different ways you can do this now. You can cut medallions in about 2-inch pieces all the way down and you could sear those up. You could leave it as one piece and truss it as a whole roast, or you could cut it in half and do fat sides on the outside and truss it as a double loin roast. These are kind of your options, but we can go into some of that later. But this is a nice, clean, trimmed loin, ready for consumption, however you want to do it. Last but not least is your front shoulder. So front shoulder is going to be a little bit more tricky, and when you go and cut these off the animal, it's usually just sheared right off. They're not going to come in real close to the body. They're going to cut off that, once again, right where your shank would intercept. There's going to be a little joint right about there, and then your actual shoulder blade. So when you're looking at the inside of the shoulder, it will be completely flat on the side that you're going to be cutting from. And then when you get to the reverse side, what would be the outside where the skin is, there'll be a hooked bone in here. So once you travel to the back side of that bone and you start cutting out the hook, that is that's a little bit of a trickier process. And a lot of the times you're not going to use the whole shoulder as a piece. So like you're not gonna just leave the shoulder and say use it like you would the ham. So this you can kind of trim out and trim in. And so right now I'm right on the back side of that flat bone, and you'll be able to feel it and see it, kind of how it works out, the rounder side of it, and cut and trim your fat. If you think it looks good, like you'd want to use it in your sausage, just throw it right into the mix. If it looks kind of blood-ridden and beaten up, I'd probably either throw it into the stockpile or throw it into the trash, whatever kind of toots your whistle. And again, this is a little frozen, so it's a little bit easier to get through. When it's warmer and thawed, cutting meat's always a little bit more difficult. But you kind of see where the outline of the shoulder is now, and I'll hold that up, make sure that you can see that. So this is the shoulder blade itself. Like I said, there's going to be a hooked bone on the back side, right about here, but you can get to the knuckle right here and kind of cut and trim all of that up. So that way, when you come on the back side, just like you did the ham, you can let a lot of that muscle itself do the work for you, so you don't have to worry about it. And so coming around the front side of that knuckle, coming on the back side, and doing your best to cut it out. Getting as much of that meat as you can so you can utilize it in whatever way you can. Best things for the shoulders overall that I've learned: use a lot for stews. You can throw a lot right in as sausage. You can do braises. You could do your pulled pork. All different types of things. So kind of the world's your oyster. So right here is where I've hit that hook bone. So now I'm going to get right on the side of it, and I'm going to come out, pull a little bit so I can get as much meat off of it as I can. Now you're going to come on the top and back in to the hook. So it's almost like a wave in that bone. And so you see how I've come in with the blade towards me, and I'm leaving the back side of that bone with the blade away from me. I'll shave the rest of this meat off the top of the shoulder blade, and we'll kind of see how that's coming out. So now you see where that hook bone is, and each animal is different. Some it'll be big, some it'll be small. Sometimes the hook will almost reach the top side, so it differs on every animal. But like I said, try and let the meat do the work for you so you're not beating yourself up. So again, shoulder blade intact with the top of the hinge where the shank would be, right into the stock pot. And that's what I have for you for basic trimming.